Well, hello, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. So, I just want to welcome everybody to episode 2 of Wicked City and our discussion slash breakdown of it. So, I want to welcome our lovely guest, Miss Chantal Maurice, who has made appearances on shows like Blue Bloods, Grey's Anatomy, and Quantico, but she is nearest and dearest to my heart as the character of Angela Harris on Wicked City. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to chat with you about all things Wicked City.
Yes, yes. You see, I even pulled out the background for us. I
I
said,
see it. I love it.
I said we need to let people know what they're watching. We don't want it to ever escape their mind. It's right here. My big head is in the way of the E and the D, but you know what we know what we're talking about. So we are here to talk about episode 2 of season 1. And this episode was really interesting to go back and watch because I forgot just how much happened in such a short amount of time. So in this episode, this is right after Mona has gone on to the upper room after the coven has done the spell to try to get Jordan more power. So we start off the episode and Mona is here's my question because I need you to help me because I promise you for some reason I cannot piece it together. This is the apartment, right? Like that Mona is in the apartment from the they live in.
You mean when she goes to the other side?
When she goes to the other side, yes.
When she goes to the other side, that's a different place.
Oh,
Yes. That's not I hope I at least I think at least that's what I think.
well, see, that's what,
But yeah,
I think so too. Because at first I was like, well, maybe it's a different angle, and then I was like, well, no, a different angle isn't going to turn the room around like that. So I don't know.
yeah, I
That
think it's the like you called it the upper room.
yeah,
Yeah, I want to say like now we're in the upper room.
yeah, that was what I was kind of thinking because it looks the same, but it also looks different. Now, the reason I bring that up is it's not irrelevant to the story for me because at one point Mona does say, "What are you doing in my house?" And they say this is our house. So
Mm,
that was what made me feel like it was supposed to be inverted from the regular.
that's good.
So
I don't want to lie and make up something. I really don't want to make up something.
listen,
um, that's good though. That she said, "What are you doing in my house?" They said, "This is our house." That's very interesting.
mhm,
Unless it's like halfway between
mhm,
different planes, almost if you will, like this earthly plane versus the upper room heavenly plane, kind of like
mhm.
meeting together. So maybe it's like a mixture of the her apartment and this new plane. That's
Yeah,
good. That's
yeah.
good.
It was a good moment because I was like, okay, well that would make sense that she's in this different level of existence, this different plane of existence. So of course it would be something familiar to her. So that was also the other thing that I thought was maybe it was something that was meant to be familiar, but not exactly the same. So maybe it was like an apartment in the same building or something, but it just wasn't the same place. So um
Mm.
I found that so interesting in that scene just because it was the whole thing was meant kind of to comfort her, even though she wasn't comfortable. My girl was upset.
Too bad.
so, so while
But that
she's
was like a great question for Kristen and Serena, our writers. They would definitely be able to bring clarity to that.
yes, and I think I will ask them because I'm very curious about that because that would add that whole other layer to it because I love that kind of stuff where um it's some that transition period is something where you're supposed to see things that can make you feel comfortable whether they do or not, they're still there for that purpose. And in this scene we are introduced to Mona's guides. They do reveal themselves as her guides, and we also meet her uncle who apparently passed away years ago. And Mona's like beyond happy to see him, but she's kind of like, well, what's going on? And that's when they reveal to her that she is in the upper room. um That scene took me for a loop because she was so caught off guard, and I was like, well, yeah. And as you kind of go forward in the episode, the guides, I feel like, are talking to her in a comforting way, but they're also kind of telling her, like, girl, you need to get over it and you need to bring it down a couple of notches. And I was like, well, she's deceased. Can we work? Like, let's help her work through that.
This is trauma. Yeah.
You know, like my girl is going through right now.
Mhm.
Um, so then we go to the coven, and everyone is kind of like having their own little reaction to Mona being gone. Jordan has completely lost grip of reality for a quick second, and she is just like woo woo woo. Angela is devastated, and I how was that moment for you? Like, what was that scene? Did you have to sort of pull from an experience, or was it just like, let me portray sadness?
So I don't pull from personal experiences often. That's what we call method acting.
Mm,
Um, and so my style of acting is more Meisner based, which is being truthful under imaginary circumstances.
mm,
And some people do method, they pull from different traumas and things like that. But that doesn't work for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, the way my brain, when I experience trauma as Chantal, to protect me, my brain tends to forget it. So I couldn't even do that if I wanted to because my brain tends to release the memory of trauma. And
gotcha.
also, I think that it could be a little bit dangerous sometimes, like getting yourself to a space emotionally um, and psychologically that you can't bring yourself out of. So I like to, be truthful under imaginary circumstances. I know what it's like to love someone. I know what it's like to feel hurt, to feel pain, to mourn. So, I was able to, really just tap in and create that emotion in the moment based off of the love that my character had for Mona. There's also, I don't know if it's that same episode, but there's a scene where Angela's talking to Camille and she's like, she says that Mona's like the only person
That
that
she's
like kind
ever
of
heard.
understands her, or like, so through the dialogue, through the words written by Kristen and Serena, I'm able to say, okay, well, this is how I feel about this person because it's in the script. So now, like, what does it mean to feel this way? Like, what does it mean to have that one person that you go to, that one person that you love? Like, even if we can't figure out a title for what this is,
Mhm.
what does that feel like? So, in her absence, like, how would I feel if it's like, oh shit, we did this thing, and now there's a chance that she's gone forever?
Mm,
So yeah, like that's how I approached that, the energy of that in that moment.
yeah. I love that. That to see because I didn't know anything about like the different methods of acting, things like that. So I love that explanation because it makes Angela feel her reaction feel more real versus like Chantal is reacting like this. No, it's Angela that's having that emotion. Because like you said, that scene later on where she's talking to Camille and she does say, she's the only person I've ever loved like this. It does make it even more realistic why she's so willing to bring her back, even though she has that knowledge of what the potential effects could be. It's kind of like I want her back at, all really any kind of way. I don't care. And I wrote down in my notes, Chantal is acting, and I put acting in full all caps
Oh, thank
because
you.
what I loved about this scene was, everyone has such a close knit relationship. You can tell that Charisse and Jordan and Angela Mona are close. And Jordan immediately goes to Tabitha is going to be so upset. She's going to be so mad. And Angela's just like, girl, of everything going on, you scared of Tabitha right now? And that was such a realistic way to approach that because my thing would be like, girl, the woman I love is on the floor. Why are we worried about Tabitha? Like,
Right,
like unless Tabitha can help bring her back, we need to just
right,
leave this out right now. So
exactly. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I wrote that down. I was like, Chantal is putting her whole foot into this scene.
Oh, thank
And
you so much. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. You are so welcome. And because I was telling you before, like that's one of the things that I really appreciate about what you do as an actress on this show is Angela, even now, again, and I'm not going to jump to season 2 because we're talking about season 1, but I think season 2 highlights what season 1 is setting up and what I think is the undertone of it, that Angela is the foundation of their group. And I think on the surface, it's easy to say it's Tabitha because Tabitha is their mentor. Charisse is the one who knows the most about magic. Jordan is being Jordan, but in a good way. Like Jordan is a lovable scamp, and I love her for that. She's a little handful, but Angela is the one that feels like comfort to me, even going back and watching these episodes. And even though she's upset, and even though she's hurt, and even though she's missing Mona, she still is the one who is bringing everything back to the center and saying, okay, we're either going to do this or we're not. And I'm telling y'all, we're going to do this. So, I appreciated that going back. So then we go back to Mona in the upper realm. And the guides are doing a lot of riddle talking. Mona's getting a little bit more frustrated because she's like, I need y'all to talk to me like a human. And they're like, sorry, baby, we can't do that. So, um, this is one of the scenes where I felt like they kind of started to just be like, girl, take a breath. And it was like, no, she's distraught right now. Let's let her work through it. But right after that, we see Claudette and Darlitra, and Claudette is getting their cup ready because they just unalived Darlitra's brother. And so we go back to the coven, and Jordan wants to do a resurrection spell. Like she has the bright idea to do a resurrection spell. Charisse is completely against it, and there was a moment that I didn't really see before, I guess, but Angela is clearly hesitant about it at first when she hears resurrection. It's like because there's that brief moment where she kind of stops, like, did she say resurrection? And you can see the look on her face where she doesn't want to do it, but then it's like, okay, resurrection spell, Mona, and she chooses
Right.
Mona, and
Right.
they go to look for the book that apparently has a resurrection spell, and it's just downstairs accessible to everybody, but that's neither here nor is it there. um that was one of the things that I took from that whole scene, because in everything going on, that's where you can tell Angela does not necessarily want to do this, but that's where you start to see that her love for Mona runs deeper really than just this is what we don't need to do because it's
Right.
dangerous. And Charisse is saying, you don't know what's gonna come back with her. And Angela's like, what do you mean? And Charisse starts to explain that there are other entities and spirits and beings on the other side. And we get that glimpse into what, I don't want to use the word dark magic. That powerful kind of magic that really taps into like that balance between life and death and what it can do.
Yeah.
Which I think for Angela, and I know I'm doing a lot of, but I really wanted to look at it from her perspective this episode, because I feel like her connection to Mona really, drives the episode, because she's the one who's like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to pursue it. And it's interesting going forward to season 2, how Angela's character kind of goes back to that delicate balance, but in
Mhm.
nature, and Angela's power, because we only see like little glimpses of it, we don't really realize fully yet that Angela can also affect things on this deeper level, depending on how she uses her magic, because of the way she impacts the earth, things like that. um so how does it feel to be in this scene where there's so much happening, you're having to take in information? Did you feel like you were part of the exposition, giving that to us as viewers, or did it feel kind of like I'm here in this scene and I'm enjoying the moment. And I can provide clarification if I need to, because I'm
Yeah, I think you know, whenever I'm in the scene, I'm never thinking about the audience. And I don't want that to come off wrong or like rude, but I'm always thinking about serve like the moment, like being present in the moment.
mm-hmm.
So if the line, if Sharice's character, if Sharice is talking about you don't know what's going to come back, you know, I really don't know what she's talking about. Like from my use of magic, it's always just to kind of like make people feel good. Like that's what I currently know. And because, we're so like kind of sheltered, which I didn't realize at that time by our mentor kind of like sheltered us in only using our magic in certain ways. I think that in that particular moment when we were looking for the book and going off of making the decision to say, hey, yes, let's do this resurrection spell. So when Sharice brought up that information about you don't know what's going to come back, there's all kind of spirits and da da da, it's just like this is news, like processing it in real time, like new information, but then being like, well, I don't really know or understand that stuff anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to choose Mona. Like we'll
Right.
figure out the rest, when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's I always when I watch when the shows come out, the episodes come out, and I watch them, and even hearing like some of your feedback, I'm like, wow, like a lot of those things I'm not even thinking about in the moment, because in the moment I just have this script, and I'm just going off of, creating synergy with my castmates and just figuring out like how we can make this as realistic and authentic as possible.
Yeah.
It's never until like I watch something back where I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so a lot of times where like you or other people or people who are fans of the show, like make certain like think pieces or think statements. I'm like, wow, like I never even thought about it like that
Yeah.
until maybe afterwards going back and being able to watch it. So usually I'm just like really just present in the moment and focused on like what's the objective of this scene? What do I want out of this scene?
Mhm.
And how can I portray that on camera?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Because I do think that gives it that level of realism, because sometimes when they start giving exposition in TV shows, there's always that character that just asks questions like that feel unnatural in the moment. And it'll be like, "Ugh, the sky is blue. Well, what happens that makes the sky blue?" That kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I feel like what I appreciated about the way Angela asked it was, I feel like Jordan kind of knew, but she was like, I'm not worried about that right now. And Angela, it's even funnier because Angela's like behind the bookcase, like you're behind the bookcase, and then Cherie says that, and it's like, what? like, like you kind of gotta pop your head out, like you said what now? And
Right.
we go into that moment. So it feels like the character of Angela does not
And
know.
even that moment, that movement of popping the head out, like that was our director's vision. So, he specifically wanted that shot of me looking for the books and then being like, wait, what do you mean? You know what I mean? So like a lot of times it's like I can't take credit for that because that was his vision. So he's like, hey, I need you to pop your head out, and and because that was how he saw that part of the scene happening.
Yeah. That I see that makes a lot of sense. And that shows me the thought that was put into it, because that took it that extra step, because you could have just been standing in front of the bookcase and been like, what do you mean? But instead it's like behind it, like, okay, girl, wait. Because I think it too, just on a deeper level, is like I'm so engrossed in finding this book, but then I hear this and it just makes me instantly come out of it like, okay, I need a little explanation on what you mean right now. And it
Right.
makes you be present in the moment where you might have not been before.
Right.
Um, so I do love that scene. That scene was not one of my favorites. Not that it wasn't good. When I say that, it's like I was about to say it's one of my favorites of the. It's up there. It's up there for me because I love a good exposition moment, and then I love when you get to see characters like react. So
Mm,
so you're gonna probably hear me talk about stuff like that all the time.
okay. I love that.
Um, so in the next scene, Tabitha is checking into Camille's mom's death and what happened, and she finds out that it was a single puncture wound that or a single stab wound that took her life. And they have like a news article that Tabitha's looking at, and it says Kendria Sullivan. And I want you to know that when I first watched the show, I think I watched it like twice all the way through. And for some reason, I never noticed that her name was Kendria Sullivan. I knew her first name was Kendria, but this was the first time that I went back and saw that her name was Sullivan, or her last name was Sullivan. I was like, that's interesting. And I want to ask you a question. And this is a little bit off topic, but I want to ask you a question because I feel like I'm gaslighting myself. The intro to the show, where they put the title card up and it has the name of the episode, has that always been the intro? Has that always been how that opens? Like the entire show, and they have Wicked City, and then the episode title. I feel like it's not, but then I feel like it is.
You mean like Wicked City and then the name of the episode?
Yes,
I feel like I think so.
I feel like it is. I don't know. I feel like when I went back and watched it though, I was like, is that how it always open? And then I was trying to figure out like what would I think the alternative would be. I don't know. I just wanted to
I
ask.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that the name of the episode also appears in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I wanted to make sure because it's like I could not recall that specific fact. Does that add anything to the episode? No, but it was just something I was curious about.
If
So
it's not, I know it's definitely in like on the all black, like when you go to play the episode, I know it definitely says the name of that episode.
okay, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I'm a that's what I'm gonna go with because I think you're right. I just for some I think it's also because I haven't watched season one in a while.
Me neither.
And so I was kind of looking at it through the lens of season two because like I love the opening. I was like, did they go back and redo that for season one? They said, okay, we stepped it up in season two, so now we want to add this to season one. But I
Yeah,
think you're
I
right.
think that's how it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how it was. Whew, that's what I love about going back and watching stuff is I'm like, okay, now I know I'm not tripping, but okay. um, so then we go back to Mona, and Mona is really not feeling it. She's just Ophelia even says you're disrupting our calm, and I'm like, well, her life was just ended, so what do you expect? But
Yeah.
that's a personal thing. I don't. It's not that it was bad. It just I at certain points I was like, can the girl just be upset, please? Can the lady just feel what she's feeling? I know I've said that several times, but that's the only part about like her being in the upper room that I was just like, okay, all right, let's let my girl be how she's gonna be. But
Yeah.
so then we go back to the magic shop, and Charisse tries to use her magic on her power on Jordan to make her close the book. Listen, I highlighted this to make sure the way that you screamed in that moment, and I felt like there was some voice amplification that was going on. I'm assuming that there was because the way
That's
you,
my voice.
baby, listen, I was like, where did we pull this from? I was like, what is
I
happening?
don't think we had it in the budget in season one to do any type of voice amplification, baby. That's my voice.
They just put it together several times to make it sound louder. I was like, because the way you screamed and then like looked at her like dead in her eyes, I was like, okay, all right, I was like, let me just sit back because I feel like I was getting screamed at, like I was getting hollered at. and and what I do think so number one is sad because that she's trying to save Mona and she sees that Charisse is against it. But then two, I know that they all had this pact that Charisse would not use her power on them.
Right.
And I feel like that's another reason why Angela in this moment gets so upset because it's like, not only are you using your power when you said you wouldn't, but now you're trying to do it to stop us from getting to Mona.
Yeah.
And Jordan comes out of it and she's just like, you didn't use your power on me. And just from a storytelling perspective though, I think that tells how serious Charisse is. Like even though she loves Mona, she's like, mm-mm. She's like, this is a little bit too, you know, too much for us. And Camille is just following voices at this point. Camille don't even
Yeah.
want to be here, but she Camille hears the voices and she's like, I got to go see who this is talking to me because I don't know what's going on. And Charisse lets us know that her family's been practicing magic since before, slave times, and her family is Nigerian. And I love that she shares this, and Angela and Jordan kind of look at her like, girl, okay. And then we just we just head on up to the apartment. Like, I don't know why that tickled me so much, but just little moments like that. And I just love seeing Angela get all these herbs and spices together. Like, we either finna cook something that's gonna be the most delicious food we've ever had, or we are about to make a bomb potion or something. I love it. Um, and as they're going back up the stairs, there's a part where Angela's like, well, I have everything I need down in the shop. And I was like, that you just came from? And they go in the apartment and everybody's there. And she's like, I'll be right back. You gonna be right back to the place you just came from?
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure there is a maybe she forgot. I will say that
Yeah.
because what I
So
was
refresh my memory. So we went upstairs and then I said everything I need is, yeah, because we
down
were
in the shop,
top.
because as you're heading up there, as everyone's heading up there, I don't remember who it was specifically that said, I think it was Charisse that said, it took 5 of us to kill her. It's 4 of us are not going to be able to bring her back. And
Yeah.
Jordan says, well, I have Mona's magic, so technically, it'll be the magic of 5. And Angela is saying that she can make a power amplification potion. It's not going to last long,
Yeah.
but
I remember
it'll
that.
help to, give them the power boost they need temporarily. And she says, I have everything I need down in in the shop. And I was like, so what I assume in that moment is that she thought about it after the fact. It might have been
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It had
yeah.
to have been after the fact. And I will say that the way we shoot, we don't shoot in order.
Oh,
So when
gotcha.
we're shooting, like the scene in the shop could have been shot on one day, and then that next scene could have been shot on a completely different day or a completely different week.
Gotcha.
So it really isn't for me until I sit down and watch it that I'm like, oh yeah, like that's kind of jumping around. So that makes it a little challenging to kind of even for me, like filming, it makes it a little challenging for me because we don't shoot in order. So like even episode wise. So we can go from shooting a scene in episode 1 to now the next scene being in episode 4.
Oh,
So yeah, yeah.
that makes a lot of sense then. I did
We
not.
don't shoot in order. Typically for like at least for shows that I've worked on, you shoot not necessarily in scene order, but you shoot episode by episode. We
Right.
don't shoot episode by episode. So sometimes it can be a little bit challenging for me to even be like, okay, and that's why I have to be very intentional. And I learned from season 1 because this show is the first time that I've shot like this. I've never shot anything like this before. So now, at least for season 2, I have to like kind of go back and like am always reading and rereading exactly what happened before since we don't shoot in order.
Gotcha, gotcha. Because I can definitely see how that would get so confusing having to do things. So there'll be scenes kind of like where you don't even really know what happened in between, let alone,
Yeah, you have to go back. You have to go back to the script.
Gotcha. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. That makes sense then. Where that might have just been one of those things that kind of fell through the cracks a little bit. Which again, let me say this. I am a person who I don't nitpick necessarily. Like, it's not like I just sit there going through everything with fine tooth comb. It's I just get caught up on little stuff, and it'll be things that
Well, you're
don't.
an audience member. Like that's what audience members do when we watch TV and movies. You know what I mean? So it's like that's that to me that's to be expected. If you are invested in a television show, like you're gonna watch it and you're gonna like look for certain things that maybe don't make sense or that you don't understand. So I think that that's just normal as an audience member.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. That makes me feel
Yeah.
like maybe I'm not just, like a little obsessive. Maybe I'm just an audience member who likes to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
you're invested. You're an audience member who is invested in the series.
mhm. Exactly. That's how I'm gonna look at it then. Cause I notice like I tend to cling on to those little moments that again really don't add anything to the plot, but it's just funny to see. Um it's like we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm skipping ahead in my mind. Okay. So we go back to Mona and her uncle is, telling her that resurrection spells are dangerous and it's her choice whether she goes back or not. And he already knows that she's going to. So he's just trying to provide her a little bit of support, a little bit of comfort, and then they start telling her all these riddles again. And the one will something to the many, and then there was so many things like it was hard for me to like write it down because I wanted to, but then I was like, I'm just gonna talk about the riddles as a whole, and the mother's debt will become the child's things like that. And Mona, to me, in a very like understandable way, is like, I don't understand what this means. And they say that they can't speak directly about it because those are the rules. And I said, oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now that Mona's memory is better than mine because she came back and was able to say everything they said.
Yeah.
And I've watched the show 3 times through, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I couldn't remember to save my life. I don't remember half of
And
what
I
they
think that that also could be the power of, the guides. Like
said.
once you have an encounter with your guides and they give you information, I feel like it's something that you can't forget.
Oh, that
You
would
know what I
make
mean?
sense. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's not information that like somebody like a random person is giving you. Like, no, this is your spirit guide. So
Mhm,
once your spirit guide tells you something, that's now like in you.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
something that just, you may have to think about it like it was, but it's always gonna come back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or even if you do sort of start to forget it, maybe they're there to put it back in your mind. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And that may go back to, I keep saying I feel like they just want my girl to move on from it, but that may go back to as well. They know what she's capable of. And instead of saying like you're getting stuck on this, maybe they're saying like you need to move on and you
Yeah.
need to accept this so you can figure out where to go from here because we do see when Mona comes back that she has a really, really, really difficult time with this.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think also just like, well, in my opinion of like spirit guides or like your higher self,
mhm,
because I know you were like she's upset, she just died, like give her that opportunity. But your higher self is always going to know what's best for you. So
mm,
like in this moment, you don't have to react this way, and they can always see like what's for you or what's to come for you. So I think
mhm.
them giving her, you know that feedback is because they can see and understand more than she can in that moment
Gotcha.
because they're there to guide her.
Okay, okay. I like that perspective. I like
Yeah.
that perspective, and I like the way you phrase that because that does give me a different view of it. Because that's what I kept getting caught up on the whole every single scene they would come in. But that makes a lot of sense. That operating from a higher plane is completely different from the way we would handle things. And I think especially her uncle, he was trying to be that in between of, the spirit guides were kind of like, baby, we know you can, handle this. This is you need to stop letting the earthly ways be it. And then he was that kind of middle ground where he understood she's still processing this, even though we want her to be over here. And he was just able to talk to her about different things like they told her to keep that cross on, and my girl did not do that, but
Right. Yeah.
but then again, that's when she came back to the human realm. And that's
Mhm.
when she's back and she's making her own choices without their influence. And so now she's like, I'm good. But again, we'll get there. Um, so I wrote down that I was glad that that Angela immediately thought to make something like a power amplification because Angela is the most connected with that kind of, magic, and so it does make sense to her. She would instantly think, "Okay, I know I can do something to boost us. Let me go ahead and do it." And, what I wrote down as well was that Angela's family does not do magic, so she's sort of unique in that way, and she says that she always had a way with plants and or since she was a teenager, and she didn't even know it was magic until she met, Tabitha. So, what I wanted to ask you was just as an actress. Now I know Angela is feeling some emotions, and you've kinda already touched on it earlier, with being, portraying it as the, character would feel it. How does it feel to play a character that really seems so rooted and focused? Because I know some people like playing chaotic characters who are just here and there, like a character like Claudette, I'm sure is really fun to play because it's like she's unhinged and she's doing sacrifices and this and that. But
Yeah.
a character like Angela, do you find it challenging to sort of center yourself in that moment?
I don't find it challenging because I think it's kind of in alignment with Chantal as far as being grounded and focused. Um, I think that my approach to storytelling, my approach to the craft is grounded, because I've got to feel I have to feel like it's real and authentic. I think the challenge comes where a lot of the times, most of the grounded, or like kind of like rooted in more like a reality type of characters, those characters aren't usually like they're usually not the popular ones,
Mhm.
like it's usually where you're like, okay, that she's gonna be like more subtle and grounded. So I think for me as an actor, it's not difficult to transform or to tell those stories from someone who has like that more of like a sense of grounded perspective. But I think just from like a business perspective, as far as like when we're talking about like just career in general, those
Mhm.
characters may not always be as talked about, because it's kind of like the audience just kind of expects them to be subtle and grounded, so they may not pop as much.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like a balance where I'm trying to learn a little bit more. Um, and I'm trying to learn more because I want, as an actor, I want the character to resonate with the audience, and I want them to be able to feel like she's real and relatable.
Mhm.
But I also want to that spark to be there as well. So I'm still learning how to mix and incorporate both of those.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I love the point you made about how some characters are not necessarily going to just pop out, because I think those kind of characters tend to be fan favorites once people start to really get into the show because you see how they're working in the background, and then let's say hypothetically that character were to leave. You would see how much they really brought to the canvas. And if Angela wasn't there, I do think we would sort of see the group not necessarily maybe fall apart, but you could probably sense the tension in the room. I don't mean to bring Charmed into this, but I would talk about Charmed a lot, and I respect Wicked City to the point because Charmed is like one of those shows that I went back and I don't like calling things like the Black Charmed or whatever because what I love about Wicked City is that it's its own entity. Um, Angela reminds me a lot of one of the characters named Piper in the earlier seasons who did become a fan favorite. Like everybody loves Piper. But in the beginning of the show, her sisters were the ones who were kind of like at the forefront. They were the focus, and Piper was the mediator in the background, things like that. And again, jumping ahead to season two, I think we see that same kind of trajectory for Angela. And we've even talked about it, how she went from being sort of in the back a little bit, while everyone else is in the front room doing what they need to do. Angela's and maybe in the bedroom cleaning up a little bit or getting stuff ready, but but That's what I think, and that's who I think Angela is. And I remember even when I would make was making like content about it when I first watched the show, I feel like it was easier for me to gravitate towards Charisse or Jordan. But when you go back and you really watch the show, um I think the depth that you bring to Angela is one that makes her more relatable than you realize, because Angela's one of those people that she's kind of like a parent. You know how
Yeah.
you sort of see your parents as like Superman, Superwoman, and you sort of take that for granted. And the fact that they're always there, the fact that they always know what to do, the fact that they always have an answer. And even when they don't, they make you feel good because they kind of help you be like, "Oh, I don't know either," but you can figure it out, and they feel make you feel strengthened to, seek out the answer. That's what I think Angela is as a
Love
character.
that. I love
She
that. I never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. I love that.
Mhm. I absolutely like going back and watching this episode and having watched the series again. Just Angela gives that very maternal and very caring, nurturing spirit. And I know that Kristen and Serena have talked about Angela's background that didn't really get a chance to make it into the show. And I think sort of that, not hippie necessarily, but that really relaxed background she has with her parents and whatnot. I think you can see that on display
Yeah.
when she interacts with the other characters. And even when she is talking to Camille, I love the way your voice is very, it stays in that middle zone. Like you're not screaming, you don't sound anxious. It's just like, I'm doing something I love right now, mixing these ingredients. Even the way you like very subtle, not subtly, but the way you were looking at Mona so longingly, and then you come out of it and it's like, okay, I'm in the present now and I'm talking to Camille, and Camille is saying that she doesn't have, she's never had anyone that she really cared about like that because they moved around. And Angela's like, but you will, you know? And Angela didn't have to take that moment to be that comforting to this person that she doesn't know, but she chose to.
Yeah.
And that is in stark contrast to Charisse, who is not who is not having Camille's presence.
She died. She's not here for it. I love that.
It is so funny seeing those two sides happen at the same time, because my God in heaven, Charisse is not playing around with Camille.
Who the fuck are you, Camille?
Like as soon as like when Camille is like, "Oh, this is all my fault," Charisse is like, "Yeah, it is."
I love that. Oh, that's probably one of my most favorite things about that episode is like you said, just the contrast and the balance of like, oh, it's okay. Like, welcome to our group. This is who we are. And Sharice is like, nah, get out.
Charisse is just like, mm-mm. She said, "This is a members only, and you are not invited."
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And mind you, Jordan the whole time is just being Jordan. Jordan is
Yeah.
Jordan is focused on doing this and that, and
Yeah.
it is just hilarious to watch.
Yeah. The dynamics are pretty funny. I will have to say that. I love it.
And even Jordan and Angela, I feel like kind of have a. It's interesting to watch it through the lens of them like being friends and realizing that they've all known each other for a while, because I feel like Angela is understanding towards Jordan, and she kind of knows how to talk to her a little bit, other than when she got mad, but she knows how to interact with Jordan. Whereas Sharice is just like, girl,
Yeah.
girl, like you need to stop right now.
Yeah.
But so after that, Angela says that she's never loved anyone like she loves Mona. And like you said, even though there is no label on what they have, you can tell how deep it runs for at least Angela. And I questioned whether, not questioned in a bad way, but wondered if Mona felt the same way before this experience, and then this experience tainted that, or if they were kind of always out of alignment and just
Mhm.
didn't know it.
Yeah, I personally, as Chantal, I think they've always been out of alignment and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least Angela didn't know it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure, how Mona, like if she felt that same way, but I like looking in from the outside, I personally feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Because, the first time we see them, they are, connecting in an explicit manner. And,
Yes.
and you can tell there's that connection there, but even the fact, and I know this is a completely different episode, but I do think it's important for this discussion. Even the fact that Mona is the one that is receiving and Angela is the one that is giving,
Yeah,
is indicative of what their relationship is,
I
even
agree.
even if we don't, fully see all of that play out at that time. Um, so well, thank you for your perspective on that part. Um, so we go from there. Claudette and Darlitra, they're doing a spell at the same time, and as Mona comes back, Claudette like is like, "Ugh." It's like the wind gets knocked out of her, and she realizes that death magic is being done. And there was one part that I wrote down, and this is afterwards when they're getting ready to drink the potion or drink the mix and whatnot. And Camille says, "Aren't we gonna drink that?" When everybody's like putting their blood in, she's like, "We're gonna drink that, right? Like, why are y'all putting blood in this?" I don't know why that was so funny to me. It's like, and Jordan reluctantly, and because Camilla's like, "Is this safe?" And for some reason, reluctantly, Jordan is like, Angela does have an advanced degree in biology. Like she knows what she's doing. And I was like, why are we whispering that? This should be something that we put on display.
Hmm. Good
it
point. I never thought about that.
and it feels kind of like Jordan doesn't want to push back too hard or like question, things like that. And that's just part of who she is. And so, it's not necessarily that she's scared to defend Angela. I think it was more so I just don't want to speak up, and then they think
Yeah.
especially with everything that's already happened, and then I'm not trying to make anybody mad. Um, so also Jordan like chugs Jordan and Sharice like Jordan is like and then Sharice is just like chug a lugging, and then I realized probably why because she was about to hand it to Camille, and she probably didn't want her to have it. She was just being hateful and was like, and she's just like, let me go ahead and drink this so this lady don't have nothing left. You gonna get the last little squeak of
That's
it.
hilarious.
um, so the uncle and the guides give her the cryptic warnings, whatever else, and tell her that she's got to figure this whole thing out on her own. And then we go. So there's a lot happening in between, this one scene. It's like the guides and Mona, we're doing the spell. Claudette is doing her spell. So all of this is just sort of intertwined because it's all happening at the same moment. And you can feel how everything is converging because Mona's getting ready to come back. The Coven's doing the spell, Claudette's doing her stuff. And when Claudette and Darlitra are doing their spell, they're very caught up in it. And what's interesting to me about that is the fact that I feel like death magic takes that level of intensity. Um, because even when the Coven was doing the spell in season one, they were like everybody was like it was like something was yanking them. And that wasn't something I realized until I went back and watched this episode. Was like this time Claudette doing hers, the Coven doing their spell. Like it's very intense, and it seems like it takes every single thing that you have to do it. Um, so was that something that was like written in, or do you think that's just something that it just so happened to be like that?
Um, I'm trying to remember of that moment, and I feel like I don't think it was necessarily written in, like written out, but I think it was implied. It definitely was implied that, like you said, this takes out so much.
Mhm.
And I believe that that's the first time as a group that we um, that may have been I can't remember. I don't want to misspeak, but that may have been the first time that we on camera like filmed doing something like that.
Mhm,
And I think that through repetition and kind of doing it multiple times, we as a cast kind of like find our own groove as to like what works. Um,
mhm,
that was very like early on and new in the process for all of us, and it's something that we're doing together. So I think in that moment we were all just trying to like okay, and we had all done a lot of research. So I think in that moment we were trying to like kind of just put that all together and make it as real as possible. And like you said, showcase that it takes so much out
mhm.
of us, which was why Charisse was warning us about it in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Yep. I definitely agree. With that, and that's good insight, like from behind the scenes, because I think the thing about like when you do supernatural shows, especially ones where you are tapping into some potentially dangerous magic, are those little details. Like not everything has to be like, oh, we're falling off a building. No, like sometimes it's just the little things, maybe your hands tense up or you do your hands a certain way, things like that. So I can definitely appreciate that about
And
this.
speaking for myself, it's been a learning process and a learning experience for me,
Mhm,
because you don't know how things are going to resonate on camera.
mhm,
So this is the first time that I've done like spells and things like that on camera. So a lot of it was a learning lesson and like kind of just trying different things. Like, okay, I feel like this may work, and then maybe be like, okay, let me shift or adjust it a little bit. So it's definitely been um, trial and error because I want to be authentic, and I know that this is there are people who really practice this. So I don't want to make a mockery
mhm,
of something that's real.
mhm,
But at the same time, I'm exploring it and figuring out what that looks like and how that looks like me telling this story. So
mhm.
that's definitely the part of like, casting the spells has definitely been a learning process and a learning experience for me.
Okay. Okay. Um, so within that, was there someone who was on set who maybe was a practitioner who kind of guided y'all towards how to do it?
Yeah, so Kristen, the writer, was also on set, and she, I believe, is a practitioner of Wiccan. She's Wiccan, so she was able to assist us in some ways and give us information that maybe we didn't know,
Okay.
because there's a lot of different spirituality practices. And I
Mhm,
think that when I first got the script, I was doing a lot of research on African spirituality. And
mhm,
a lot of her writing is coming from her viewpoints or her experience with Wiccan, which is not the same. And there's some differences.
mhm.
So, just again, just learning so many different things, but grateful to definitely have her around to give pointers for if we were doing something or were trying something that was a little off or wasn't quite accurate, she would be able to adjust us when needed.
Right, right. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that because that definitely gives it a new perspective. And I wonder if that's why like Charisse being, part Nigerian and her family, where that African part of it sort of comes in because something that I sort of, again, this may be more of an implication on my end that I always kind of felt was that the magic system is rooted in Africa, like in Africa and African magic. That was sort of an implication to me. And I felt like why Charisse brought that up in the moment was because of that. Like it was passed down from African descent.
Yes.
Um, and so it's good to see those two things meld in
Yeah.
this, in this show.
Yeah.
Because
And
like
I
you said,
believe I believe everything is rooted from Africa.
yeah,
So
oh, definitely.
it don't matter what it is, the roots of everything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we are the blueprint.
Yes. Absolutely.
And that's what I love so much about it is it doesn't seem like how you said they are two different things, but I think this did a good job of sort of bringing it together that they're like African mythology and spirituality is different from Wiccan, but they are still related and they do still have elements that bleed into each other, and one probably gave birth to the other.
Yeah.
And so from here, this is, and I misspoke earlier, this is when Claudette realizes that someone else is doing death magic. And we find out that Claudette has death magic herself, and so that's probably why she was more susceptible to it. But Darlitra also feels it, but we know that with Darlitra's type of magic, she's probably prone to feeling something like that too, because it was just a big disturbance. But then the council also feels it. So I was like, listen, everybody feels it. I think I felt it. So but that's some powerful magic anytime, beings like this are able to feel it from, across town, across the country, whatever else. And when Mona comes back, Angela says, "Don't ever leave us like that again." Well, girl, y'all killed her. Like, what? It's
You're
not.
right.
It was so fun. It's not like I don't know why that was so funny to me. It shouldn't have been. That's one of those things that was just funny. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean, and even I think that to me goes back to um I know that that's what was written,
mhm,
and I probably could have found a way to um maybe just to add a little bit of flavor to that. Maybe, I try my best to stick to the script as much as possible, especially like when things are new.
mhm.
Um, but if I could go back, I probably would have maybe zhuzhed that lineup a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Because even though it was hilarious to me, because I find the weirdest things funny, so it's something that could have been 100% serious, and I'll still find it funny. But I do think that even goes back to like Angela's like nurturing spirit was like, I'm not gonna say that we killed you. I'm not gonna bring up I'm just gonna say don't leave us like that again.
Right.
That was sort of how I framed it in that moment, was like, I almost lost you, and now we were able to bring you back. And so I'm not gonna make a huge deal out of it. I'm just trying to find a way to connect with you in this moment. Um,
Yeah.
because Mona is like clearly shaken, like she's just readjusting, like literally to being back amongst the living. Like her body doesn't even feel the same, from what she tells us later on. And Angela and Jordan are comforting her. And Charisse checks on Camille and asks Camille, like, are you okay? And Camille is looking at her like, no, I'm not okay. And she gets ready to leave. And it's like somehow in between, it's like Charisse goes back to arguing with Camille, but she was just checking on her. So, there's a lot happening there. But as she's getting ready to leave, Mona's like, it's gonna take the five of us to be together, to fight what's coming next. We have to stick together. Charisse is still Camille is the reason that all this has happened. She's what we got to watch out for. And Mona's like, it's not her. And Mona just seems like she's over it at this point already. She's not even back for a couple of minutes, and we are already fussing and fighting. So, after this, Mona tells Angela to go ahead and, go home. She just wants to be by herself. Jordan brings her necklace, and Mona throws it on the floor and it's like, girl, I'm not doing this today. So she goes to sleep, and that's when we see the wraith in the mirror, which I will not lie, made me very uncomfortable at first. I was like I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, mm-mm, this is not for me. I was like, girl, let me go get my cross necklace, because I said, I don't know what this is, but mm-mm, mm-mm.
Yeah.
So with us having gone through the episode and whatnot, do you have any memorable parts of it, or any favorite memories from filming this episode?
um, I think I think one of my my favorite memories was when we were doing the spell, the using the spell to bring her back,
Mhm.
the resurrection spell, and that's just because Chanel was making me laugh so much with the stuff that she was saying. Like, she just was. I just remember, like, because we were all just like really, just trying this, like figuring it out, and just when the cameras weren't rolling, she was cracking me up, which she tends to do. Like, she just tends to really crack me up and make me laugh.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not even gonna say what she was saying. It was so funny. I like that sticks in my head. And what else from that episode sticks in my head? Yeah, I think just us, because we were like practicing and like trying to. We were, yeah. So I think just the resurrection spells probably my most memorable moment,
Mhm.
and just really because we're always, whenever it's like big group scenes, it's very clear that we're always like doing our best to just make it work.
Mhm.
And so that's what stands out and what I remember most about everything. And they're like, nobody's just kind of like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, everybody really is putting in 150% to be like, how can we make this work and be the, like, us all bring our best to it. So I
Right.
think that's probably the thing that stands out to me and that I remember the most.
Right. Because you do have really good group chemistry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what makes the show work is even though you have a limited number of episodes, the group really does work well together and interact well together because if you didn't, it would just feel like a clunk here. Like it would just feel like we're just trying to muddle through. But that's what I love. Like even having that story of how Chanel was making you laugh does show the connection that you have and how you're able to translate that on screen. Because with Angela and Cherise, it is so funny to me that Angela and Cherise are best friends because they seem like two completely different people, and that those kind of relationships tend to balance themselves out really well. And I think you do see that a lot when the characters interact. So bravo. Uh, my next question is one that I really, really would love to hear your answer on because I just want to say too, I've told you I love the way you speak. The way you answer questions is so just elegant and very regal. And you can tell that even if it's something that may catch you off guard, you seem very prepared to respond in a way that you're passionate with, as opposed to just like, giving an answer for the sake of it. Um, so how do you feel about the impact of this show? Because I think it's really, really important to highlight the fact that this is even if not one of like the first Black female led supernatural drama that I have like ever heard of. And there may be some more, and someone may try to read me for forgetting, but this is one of the first times that I've ever seen like a fully Black female led TV show that is about magic. And I don't know if you see it, but there are a lot of people on social media that hype it up, that talk about it. I get a lot of people on TikTok, especially asking me, is the show good? I say yes. They tell me, like, I've had a lot of people message me and say they went back and watched it. They're like, oh my God, how did I not know about this show? Um, and how does it feel to like be a part of that and know that you're creating something that is really speaking to a lot of people?
That's a great question. I think I it feels great to start off with that. I was in Jamaica recently and I was at the airport and this girl was staring at me and I was like, why is she looking at me? Like, what's going on? And we ended up next to each other in line at the airport and she was like, are you on Wicked? And I didn't expect
Mhm.
her to say that. And I
Mhm.
guess I'm a bit unaware of the impact. I do see a couple of people that talk about the show on Twitter, So I do see a little bit of that, but I don't, I think I'm a little bit removed um, from some of the impact. So, from her just that she's like, I watched the show. I'm like, oh my God. Like I didn't, it was great because I'm like, the show is making an impact. Whether I know it or not, like there are people who see themselves or who feel represented by the show, and I think that like that's the purpose of entertainment. Like the purpose of it is to put out material that people from all over different walks of life can just either feel seen by or feel like this is what I gravitate to, because as a storyteller, that's why I create art. I don't create it for me. It's not about putting myself on a pedestal. It's creating, bringing a story to life so that it can be someone's Sunday afternoon joy, or it could be someone's escape from reality. Like that's the purpose of it to me.
Mhm.
So when I had that encounter at the airport, it was like, okay, like this is doing something and reaching people. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I'm honored. I'm honored to be a part of that. I think any storyteller is honored when you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into something that actually grows legs and actually goes out into the world, and that people it resonates with people and people gravitate towards. So I'm honored, and I hope that we are able to continue to reach people, and I hope that people are able to continue to either see themselves in the character or just really just enjoy the story. So yeah, I'm definitely honored.
I love that. I love that because I can't imagine what it would be like to go somewhere and someone recognize your face. Because with such an up and coming show, I feel like it could be easy to maybe feel like, oh, nobody's watching it, because, and not because it's not worth watching, but I don't know what it feels like to be an actor on a TV show, and the level of, I don't know what word I want to use, but like I think what you said, awareness, because I wonder if sometimes as an actor, if you just kind of do it and then like I'm gonna put it out there in the world and I'm going and whatever happens happens. And so I think it's beautiful that she recognized you, especially because I do think that this show is one that is in its own lane to the point where it really does stand out. Like truly, that's why I try not to compare it to, other magical shows or whatnot, because I don't think that it fits in those categories, because like, again, it is its own category. And then two, I think it's really important for us as Black people to have our own thing, which
Yeah.
is a lot of the reason why I chose to start this in during Black History Month, because this podcast is gonna begin airing in Black History Month, and that's why I wanted to do it, because I feel like that's the perfect time to start celebrating us and to put this original story out there so that people can hear about it and hear it from your perspective. Because there's one thing for me to just sit in front of a screen and talk about how I feel about it, but to hear your experiences and your memories of being on set and just things like that, especially because when you're filming, I would imagine it can feel like, okay, here's a day of work, here's a day of work. And then by the time everything gets put together, you get a chance to sit back and you get to see it as a viewer. And I'm just so glad to be able to share the things that people have said to me about it, because I never would have thought I would seeing something like this, honestly.
Wow. Yeah. That's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that information with me, because, I only know either what I hear or what I see. So I'm just happy that, people are taking to the show. Like that's a beautiful thing. And you said something earlier about like, do you just do the work and leave it alone? And that's how I approach it. If I am, when I am blessed with an opportunity to tell a story, to become a character, it's like I do the work and then I move on. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So it's like I'm not walking around being like, anybody watching Wicked City? Like, no, you know what I mean? So it's like, and I work on so many projects and things like that. So it's like my job is to bring this character to life and then what it does after that, like, is out of my control. So I do my best with whatever project I'm working on. And, it is beautiful for, people to be like, I watched the show. I love the show. Like, can I take a picture? And I'm like, of course, absolutely. So yeah.
Because listen, when you said that you were open to being here and talking to me about it, I am telling you, I cried because as I move into sort of this new phase of my life, and we talked about this earlier, but as I move into this new phase of my life where um I'm kind of finding my passion, it's been amazing to see other people work within their passion and to see what you and the rest of the cast and what Serena and Kristen put into it, because it does give me that hope that if I just keep putting myself into what I'm doing, eventually I will get there. And sort of, I think sometimes when people ask me, well, what was your moment? What was the moment where you realized like you are a content creator or whatever else? This sticks out in my mind because I promise you I'm not gonna cry. I promise I'm good. Um, this sticks out in my mind because you and no one else had to take a moment to talk to me, but you did. And I am forever grateful that you trust me enough to speak with you and to put your story out there and to allow me to, share this experience with you. So when I think of the start of knowing my purpose, this is it. I've
That's
never
beautiful.
I mean, just from the fact that I've never sent emails to people and been like, here's this and here's that, and we gotta get the date. I've never done that before. And this made me feel like this is that first step. Like this is what one day I was about to say Johnny Carson, but he is not with us anymore. But one day when I'm being interviewed by somebody, I'll be like, this was the moment. This was when I broke in, and y'all will be getting interviewed the day before me. So I'm just gonna be like, well,
Yeah.
they
Well,
were here.
gratitude. I'm very proud of you, very happy for you. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of this information with us. I really appreciate it. Do you want to tell us where we can find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. It's my first and last name, chantalmaurice.com. Chantal, not Chantel. We don't tell because snitches get stitches. So I'm on Instagram. Also, you can follow my acting studio, which is Co-Star Coaching Acting Studio based in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're on Instagram at co-star_coaching.
Hey, I love, and before we end, I do want to ask you a question about that because co-star coaching, I see some of the stuff that you do on Instagram. I think that is beautiful and I think it is amazing. And if I had the money, I promise you, I would be right there. Am I an actor? No, but you know what? I will be right there. Um,
Thank you so much. It's definitely my purpose. You know, educating, inspiring, and motivating other artists, and just using my experience in the television and film industry, my trials and tribulations. I'm able to use that to, just help others and encourage other people. So yeah, that's my baby, co-star coaching.
and I love seeing the videos. I absolutely love it because everyone just looks so happy and everyone just seems like there was one you did. I think it was a story, and it was like, put your pictures up on IMBD because when these people go looking for you and they
Yeah.
trying to see your resume and they can't find a picture, I don't know. It was little things like that that I've never thought about before, and I was like, that probably would be important for them to know what you look like. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love sharing tips, and I want people to work. I want people to, to be able to live out their passion and their dreams. So if I'm able to help people, get opportunities and book jobs, I'm absolutely going to do that.
right, right. Well, that's great. I love that and helping the next generation sort of on their come up
Yeah.
and getting to where they need to be. So, with that being said, y'all go follow Chantal on social media And I want to thank you again for being such an amazing, amazing guest for today's episode.
Thank you for having me. It was amazing.
And hopefully we'll see you again. That's all I can say. When we get to season 3, hopefully we see you.
Yes, yes.
But,
Thank you.
well, all right. I will be talking to you and letting you know how things go.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.